I've learned
Okay.
that instead of getting upset over problems, problems are business. It's about how you handle the problems, not if they're going to happen. They're going to happen.
They
And
are. I think the saying was, if you want to make the gods laugh, then make a plan.
I like that.
Figure it out. Today's guest is a real treat for me. It's Howard Berg, the Guinness World Book of the Book of World Records for the world's fastest reader. You're also an author, an entrepreneur, and an educator. Thank you so much, first of all, for being on the show. This is an absolute treat for me. You've been the undisputed record holder for speed reading for almost 30 years now, right?
Correct.
I was looking it up. I was looking it up yesterday. And I think Wikipedia said it was 25,000 words per minute.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I need to get the audience caught up on the story of how you and I first met, because I think it's a really funny story. So I was thinking that I first saw you on Howard Stern, but it may have been on another news show. And
Actually, I could answer. I mean, it was on Jon Stewart. It was his first show, and he had Howard and me on as his first guest.
oh wow, wow.
I read Private Parts, which is 700 pages in 5 minutes, and I did an analysis. But you're correct. I was with Howard, but it was actually John's first show, Jon
Yeah.
Stewart's first show.
That does make sense. That's where I would have seen it. But so I was around 18 years old when that happened, and I'd already been teaching guitar at the local music store for about 2 years, and the way that I tend to learn was through reading. And so when I saw you doing your speed reading, I immediately had a whole bunch of questions, because I know how I learn, and I'm going like, okay, so how can you get that much information in such a short amount of time? And and also be able to prove it, one of the things that's really exciting too is that, like, since I've been, since I was so skeptical, I spent about 10 years having this little conversation in my head. It's like, if I ever met Howard Berg, what would I ask him? and then I remember I was working at one shopping cart, and I never really gave it thought for years, as far as oh well, maybe one day I'll meet you. But I remember you actually called. I think it was the third time that we spoke at one shopping cart that I actually realized it was you.
Okay.
It was funny because I remember you saying that you were an educator and all that kind of stuff. And another thing I remember noticing is I think the Texas has gotten into your accent a little bit. I think you lost a little bit of was it Brooklyn?
Yes. I don't know if I have a Texas accent, but I have less of a Brooklyn accent.
Yeah.
No one in Texas has ever asked me what part of Texas I grew up in.
Right. Yeah. You don't have a Texan accent yet. That's for sure. But it's definitely toned down. So that's something that's pretty amazing. But so there you are. You're on my phone, and I remember it got past the time when I was supposed to clock out, and I was losing my mind. I'm going, okay, how am I going to get a chance to ask him these questions that I've been sitting on for about 10 years? And so then, fortunately, because, it was after the clock out time, I turned around to you and I said, this is terribly unprofessional. I shouldn't be doing this. I have to apologize. But the only reason I'm doing it, I'm supposed to be clocked out, but I've been thinking of questions for about 10 years that I'd really like to ask you, if you don't mind. And you were so kind with your time. That was absolutely amazing. You also gave me access to the speed reading course, which was very, very nice of you. And I can honestly say it was a very big part of my ability to become successful, to be where I am today. Because I'm the CTO of a bank in Ohio, and then also there's funnelfixing.com and all the IT services that it provides. But I end up getting so many emails every day, just like everybody else. But the difference is, because I can speed read, I can actually blast through all of them in a timely manner. That doesn't mean I can answer all of them, right? But at least it's like, if you emailed me, I'm aware of what you sent, So there you go. So one of the takeaways that I had, I want to talk about speed reading for a moment, and how do you usually present it as an idea or something that people can do?
I I tell people speed reading doesn't work. It's speed learning that they're really looking for. No one wants to read faster. They want to learn faster, understand better, retain it, and use it when they need it, and be in the state they need to use it. So I did move a Swiss Army knife where I use reading to find what's important and need to learn quickly. I use brain-based learning to analyze what I didn't understand so it makes sense to me. So you read the calculus book, but you don't know how to do anything. You still have to learn it. And then memory skills for retaining what I found was important so I can use it when I need it. And then emotional intelligence skills so I'm in the right frame of mind so I don't get nervous taking a test or uncomfortable speaking in public, which many people experience. So they get the knowledge, but they don't have the capacity to use it when it's needed. Like I teach you to drive and you take your road test and fail because it was a test and you lost your focus and you couldn't remember anything you learned. So it's really a series of skills, not just simply reading. If reading was learning, everyone reading a book would get an A and close every deal. But even reading slowly doesn't guarantee understanding and insight and ability to apply what you learn. So the guy who owned Evelyn Woods was Maurice Thompson Jr., paid me to train his son. He said, you went past speed reading to speed learning, bringing it into the 21st century. And that was really more my goal than simply going fast and saying it was a biology book or a chemistry book, and that's all I remember.
Mm. That really covers a lot of ground there, because what I was going to say is, like, when I explain speed reading to people, I say it really should be called proper reading, because it's really developing really good habits, right? One of the biggest concepts for me was realizing that the purpose of a book in the first place is for the author to share information that the reader doesn't know yet. And so I remember you saying that when you're blasting through the content really quickly, you're looking for info that you don't already know. So you have a distinct purpose when you open a book, right? Yeah, exactly.
If we actually do an experiment, I think you took the course, but for the listeners, if you look around you at everything colored blue and memorize it, just do it for a moment and close your eyes and remember everything colored red. You'll notice that your brain only remembers things that were blue because that was your purpose and everything else disappeared. When you read with a purpose, things that have significance to your brain pop like they were bolded. Because just like the faces in a crowd that are familiar to you stand out from the unfamiliar faces, the data in the book that has relevance to you will pop. It's the same brain and it's the same phenomenon. And that's how you're able to go very quickly and still find what's so important by having that purpose, like you said.
One of the reasons why I've used that example, like that important idea of, a book is there to share information that the reader doesn't know. And one way I like to explain one of the biggest mistakes we make in reading is when people will read like part of a sentence and then reread it. Or even, like they'll get to like the end of a paragraph and they're like, I don't get it. And I find that, like, since I've been teaching for so long, right, that's like 25 years or something like that. Now, one of the worst kind of learner I find is the type where they say, they interrupt you and say, wait, I don't get it. I got some questions. Wait. And it's like, I just want to tell them, well, of course you don't understand it yet because I haven't finished explaining it. Right? And that's exactly what you're doing when you're reading a book if you don't give them a chance to explain what they're saying. So just keep on plugging through, and then eventually, like if they've just plain failed at the task of sharing their information, that's one thing. But that's, you don't usually get a book published that's complete nonsense, right? That's the editor's job to, make sure that. So really make sure that you read through the entire chapter at least. Would you say read through the chapter before hopping back if you're confused, or finish the book?
I read the whole book in about 5 minutes to get the 50,000-foot view. What's it about? Do I even want to read this? I mean, how many times have you spent weeks on a book that this isn't what I thought it was? I just wasted 3 weeks. I don't have 3 weeks to waste. So I take 5 minutes, I look at the big picture, see if it actually addresses what I'm looking for. What did the writer do to make my eye find what's important? Bolding, italics, pictures, diagrams. Is there a bunny trail here that I can use to kind of get the big picture in greater detail? And then I read the first chapter quickly so I have a fresh map of the territory so I can anticipate what's coming before I get to it. And then I read at my peak comprehension rate, marking off what I didn't understand or need to remember. And then the last step is analyzing things that didn't make sense to make sense of them and retaining things that now have significance that I didn't know before. So I don't have to come back and read it another 100 times. I make sure that I can lock it in and then it's there and I can use it for a very long time after that.
Okay.
It's a series, it's like a Russian tea doll. You're going down and down and down to the smallest detail. And you usually don't need everything. That's one of the keys to learning is what do you actually need? Mm-hmm. You can't necessarily learn everything, but you need to learn everything you need to know. Mm-hmm. So the key is knowing what you need to know.
Right. I remember, and I know that in my notes here that we're going to talk about languages a little bit later. But how much dabbling in other languages have you done?
Actually, I took Spanish in high school and French in college, and I have a funny French story if you'd like to hear it.
Absolutely.
So I was fluent. I was at the point I was dreaming in French. Mm-hmm. So. We went to Paris with my wife, and I hadn't used French for like 40 years, and I had to take a bus.
Just that all.
And the bus was spelled Roissy, and I didn't know where to pick up the bus to go downtown. So I went to the help desk and said, "Où est le Rosie bus?" And the woman starts hysterical laughing, crying, Dee, tell everyone, "Où est le Rosie bus?" People literally fell on the floor of the airport, hysterical laughing. So she said, "Do you want the Rosie bus or the Lassie bus?" I says, "Well, what's the difference?" She says, "Well, Rosie means prostitute in French. Do you want to go to the Bravo or downtown?" And my wife goes, "Downtown, please." And she said,
That's really funny. That's really funny.
There's a corollary. Shakespeare was wrong. A rose by any other name does not smell as sweet if you're in Paris.
Yeah,
that one wrong.
That's funny. Oh man, French. right. The reason I brought up the language one though, because I heard you say about how you'll review a book and then you'll find the key points that you didn't understand. And the reason why I brought up languages this early is because one of the best linguists that I've met, as far as being effective as a language teacher, He's actually from Texas, and he was my old boss in Taiwan when I was teaching English. And so obviously he knows English. He also can read, write, and speak Japanese, Korean, Mandarin, and last I checked, he'd been working on his Taiwanese. And one of the tricks he'd do is he'd have his dictionary, and every time he'd look up a word, he'd have a pen and he'd put a dot next to the word. And then if he looked up the word again and noticed that there were like 2 dots there, or 3 dots or 4 dots, he's like, okay, it's time for me to get this word drilled in my head because it's obviously very important and I keep on forgetting it. And I think that's such a great method to make sure that you get what you need to do.
Example, because I took a graduate course, an educational psych. Now, it was an AP test. Mm-hmm. So the book was 400 pages. I spent 7 hours. Mm-hmm. I read it 4 times in 7 hours. The test was 6 hours. I finished in 50 minutes. I got 4 graduate credits with a B+ for $65 in less than 8 hours. I didn't get an A, but I didn't need an A. I needed a C. I was a teacher, and I needed the C to get the credits to keep my license. So I only needed a C, And I knew that was my purpose, was to get a C or a grade, or a B plus was fine, because I really wasn't interested in learning the book. I was interested in earning the 4 credits. I had a purpose. And I think 8 hours on a 5-month graduate program to get a B plus is not a bad outcome. That was really what I was trying to do. So that kind of puts it in a context.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic. And so I also saw that you've created additional courses related to memory, writing, and math, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, and so you were saying that the transition to focus on that is basically to show that speed reading, it's not, like it's not that big of a draw, even though it's the learning that is, like, the learning speed that's the most important part, correct?
It's the linchpin. To me, writing and reading are the same phenomenon. Reading is input and writing is output. As I'm reading, one of the things I'm doing in addition to learning content is looking at what did the writer do to make the content transfer more readily? What strategies were they using to make it more meaningful and more impactful, more interesting, more intriguing? And then when I'm writing, I'm going to use the strategy they use for a different topic, but I know that strategy works. So I'm not just reading on one level. Most people, when they read, they're just reading for content. I'm reading on 3 levels. 1, I'm learning the content. 2, I'm asking myself, how will I apply this content in a real world situation, making it significant? Because my brain sees the value and the benefit of learning it. It wants to hold on to that because it can see it can enrich my life in another way. So there's a motivation on the unconscious level to make it more significant, and it's just facts that have no relevance to my life. And then I'm also looking at what did they do to make these facts intriguing and interesting and meaningful, so I can employ that in writing. So writing is output and reading is input, if that helps.
Yeah, it does make sense, because, like, that, well, that's the thing. It's I can let the cat out of the bag with you on what I've been up to with this show. It may or may not have something to do with tax reasons, but the other thing is, I never thought of myself as a writer. And like, I knew that because of my linguistic skills, that I knew that I could express myself clearly. I knew that I had a big vocabulary, all that kind of thing. But I wanted to have this show. I wanted to bring out, attention to detail and show how these things, how you can use attention to detail to build more skills, and then those just snowball, and it just gets, like, once you can grind, you can pick up skills like people pick up, like change off the ground, and so one thing that that hit me, though, is I want to have this show, but I'm going to have some people who are like, well, why are you having this show anyway? Like, what's your deal? Like, you got to be selling something, right? And I make most of my money from consultation, and if that being the case, I wouldn't be able to get any consultants on the show because we're directly competing. But if you have a book and that's what you're slagging, then it's like, okay, well, then, like, buy my book and his book. They're cheap, right? That kind of thing. So I ended up sitting down and going, okay, I need a book. And I'm like, okay, what's it going to be about? Well, I got the attention to detail, and it basically turned into what I think is different about me compared to the people who I meet. But I knew that nobody cares, right? Like nobody cares about, like, who I am as a person and all that kind of stuff. But I do know that when I share, these are the ways that I gained all these skills, and here are all those skills, then it practically wrote itself. So I did the 32,000 words in a month. And because it's about attention to detail, and I have the, because I taught English, so I had to correct punctuation, a huge chunk of every day. And so it was just so easy to just spit it all out really, really quickly. And I knew that my editing trick would be, like, people like to read it out loud when they edit. And I'm like, well, why not just record your reading out loud and make it the audiobook version? And so I had both of them done in about a month and a half. Like I did the audio, like the editing and the audio and all that kind of stuff as well. And so that's why it resonates to me what you're talking about, like input,
Sure.
output, and also I've got a passion for math because of engineering, but
Sure. Can I just
but
interrupt for 1 second?
oh, absolutely.
I created a program. It's not on my website yet, but how to write a book in a day. And so when this is over, you'll send me your email and I'll set you up online with it. From what you're describing, you could have done that in 1 to 3 days, the same book,
Hmm.
and just as well. So, and it's, as you know, it's technique.
Yeah.
If you have the right technique, you can do anything. If you don't, it takes longer because you're kind of winging it. But I figured a way out to write a book. I wrote a book in 5 hours and it went #1 on Amazon the next day. And since you do like to write, as a gift to you for me, I'll give you access to all my programs, and I'll also give you the one on how to write a book in a day, so you can write many books.
Excellent, excellent. That was one of the things that hit me. I was so scared, like it's like, okay, I gotta hit around 150 pages. That's what I was thinking. It's like, if it's gonna be a book, I don't, like people. I just feel like people would be like, oh, if it's 100 pages, then it's like, is it really a book? And then like 150 is where I'm going like, okay, well, it's. Originally it was just a kind of a sham kind of thing to write, but then it turned into something that was very real, and it pushes a lot of buttons and gives some tough love that I think a lot of people need to hear, and I think it'll make people a better person. But it's my favorite thing about getting about halfway through was going like, I can do another one of these, and it's not going to be a problem. But you can bet I all ears about like 5 hours writing a book. It's like, okay, now we're talking.
Well, for 150 pages, it would take 3 days. I usually do like 50 pages in 5 hours. And
Okay.
it's very, very, very easy to do. It's very easy. In fact, one of the things we could discuss today is, as we continue, is how to read faster and how to understand. So I could actually share some of the skill with our audience, but I'll continue what we're doing. But I'd love to give them some strategies they can use, and not just tell them what I do, but show them how it's done.
Oh yeah, excellent. Yeah, your staff also said that you'd blast through my book like while we're on the call, which that's an absolutely amazing thing for me. But
Yeah, I could do that. That wouldn't be a problem. I was reading the U.S. healthcare bill, which
oh yeah,
was 1,500 pages in 50 minutes on a live TV show, and then I did an analysis, and all my predictions happened. I was 100% right.
yeah. Didn't you have a tie wrapped around your head or something?
At
Like
the very end, I wanted to not appear to be totally a nerd.
right,
If people are laughing and having fun, you actually can teach them more
right.
because their endorphins are flowing. They say, he's cool, he's a fun person. So after I read the 1,500 pages, which really had paper cuts, I put a headband on and took a drink of water like I just ran a marathon to make people laugh. So it would kind of break the hey, he's the real nerd
Yeah.
kind of a mindset to, oh, he's a pretty cool guy, he's fun. He knows how to make us laugh. And then with my programs, I do the same thing because, as I said, when the brain's having fun, it's experiencing joy and pleasure. It wants to remember what made it fun. So if there's knowledge attached to that feeling of it feels good, the knowledge sticks because the brain likes the feeling that it's getting. Versus, when is the bell going to ring? You've been in school, someone kill me. Is it ever going to end? And they're just droning on and on and on. And I wanted my programs to be fun so people would want more and enjoy it and retain it and experience a sense of like, this is not work, this is pleasure.
Right.
And that's what learning should be. It should be fun because it's the key to success in our information-rich world. And too many people, including students of college, they get out of school praying they'll never read another book or take another test instead of being on fire with a thirst and desire to improve. So I had an 84-year-old read 3 books in 3 hours the day after I taught her. And I tell business people, if she could do it in 3 hours, let's say you do an hour a day, and in 3 days you learn a new skill. Every single 3 days. And 101 year, you have 100 new business skills you didn't know the year before. And the next year, 100 more. And the next year, 100 more. How much more money would you make?
Mm-hmm.
How many more problems could you solve?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's about. Reading to me is a screwdriver.
Mm-hmm.
It's driving success, but the screwdriver isn't what I'm interested in. It's the outcome that you get from using it properly. And that's why people should want to learn to read faster, because there's too much information. It doubles every 6 months. And reading the way they do now, they can barely stay on top of what they need, let alone go into new areas that can help them be more successful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the thing that makes me think about that though is I just imagine some people watching right now and thinking, okay, so I get all these skills and I'll make more money, and I think that I need to take a step back on that part, because there are two skills that I can think of off the top of my head that are absolutely essential to making more money, and the first one is negotiation skills. Okay, you've got to be really good at negotiation skills if you want to make more money. The other one is marketing. So you have to be able to market yourself. So like if you can do those two things, then people will believe you, and you can go through the lovely success formula of it's 3 steps. You just repeat them. So first thing you should always do is raise your prices. Second thing you should always do is get rid of your nuisance clients. And then you should find even better clients. And then you should raise your prices, So
You're right. You're completely right. That's 100. In fact, Dan Kennedy is a good friend of mine. I used to lecture with him and Zig Ziglar when they were starting out. And says the same thing. It's just as hard to make $100,000 sale as a $100 sale. It takes as much effort. So why are you trying to make $100 sale?
Right, exactly. So we've discussed the hustle, and I call that the hustle and the grind and all that kind of stuff. Have you ever heard the saying that if you're the smartest guy in the room, that you're in the wrong room?
I like that.
Yeah,
I believe it's true. I think the more you learn, the more I think a little knowledge makes people arrogant. But when you read, I've read about 30,000 books. So I like to think if I was an idiot, I'm well informed. But what I discovered is every time I learn something, it's humbling. I realize how much more there still is that I want to know. And that's just what we know. And how much more is there that we haven't even fathomed. And all we know is what's on this planet. And look how big the universe is. So I think it's humbling. You realize that it's not even a spigot. It's not even a fire hydrant. It's galactic in its proportions, and the smart people learn what they need to know and find other people who are smarter than them in the things they don't know, and then you don't have to do everything yourself. You surround yourself with experts who complement your own natural skill set so you can focus on your core competency and be the best you, and they're doing what they do. Like you're a funnel fixer. Do I want to learn to fix funnels when I can hire you to do it? I can make content that you can't make. So why would I spend my time doing what you already know how to do? What I'd like to know is enough to know if you're being competent. So I understand funnel fixing to know that I've hired the right person, that if I had to do it, I could, but I choose not to because my time is better spent where I'm excelling and letting you do what you do best. And that's what smart people do. They don't try to be everything. They try to be competent at many things, but excel at something and hire people who excel in those other areas to work with them for joint benefit. You get a bigger pie. You get a smaller slice of a bigger pie that's bigger than the whole pie was when you did it by yourself.
Right. Yeah, got to delegate and automate. That's what it's all at. So so we've already covered then the fact that one thing we definitely have in common is you and I are polymaths, right? We at least know enough so that we can have an intelligent conversation where it's like we know the terrain. Okay, there might be like a detail here or a detail there that you're not aware of, but it's we can walk into that. And so how do you get to surround your people or yourself with those experts? Like is it in a university environment, or how do you surround yourself with experts?
Well, sometimes I'll do something like old desk, and you get 5 or 6 people to do a simple task where you're paying 10, 20, $30 for the person. Mm-hmm. The one who does the best job is the one you stay with. And then you do that another couple of iterations, and you end up with the truly most qualified person. The only way you know they're qualified is by their performance. And anyone can tell you how good they are, but until they actually show you how good they are, you don't really know. And so I think it's either watch their performance or find other people who've worked with them that are good judges of character, that are other entrepreneurs. Say, I've got this funnel fixing guy and he's really amazing. I've made a ton of money that I never would have made without him. I think you should look into it. And I say, really? Can you give me his name? And I check it out. I say, wow, he really is good, just like I was told. So it's recommendations, referrals, and also experimenting and not settling on one person, and testing and seeing performance. So those are the two things you need to do. And of course, you're right. There are places you can hang out where there are smarter people that are more entrepreneurial. And if you're like I once read somewhere that if you look at the 10 people you're closest to in life, your income is going to be pretty close to what those people's incomes are. And if you're hanging around with people who can't afford a car or an apartment, and you're wondering why you're always broke, maybe you need some new people in your life, because that's what you're aspiring to. I'm not putting those people down. We need people. We need everyone. Everyone matters. I was lecturing in Thailand, and I was pointing out that the only reason we're here is someone's growing your food right now, and someone else is making your clothes, and someone else is
parking your house, and
you should be and they're Buddhist. So I said you should appreciate everyone, because we could never be doing what we're doing right now if it wasn't for other people out there digging holes, weaving cloth, doing things you and I don't want to do but need done. So we're very fortunate there are other people who have found those things to be what they choose to do, or we could never be doing what we do. We should appreciate those people and not denigrate them. But if you want to be more successful, you want to make more money, you need to be around people who are making more money and are more successful, because the skills they have and the attitudes that they have are part of what created their success. And you're going to reflect those values because that's who you're with. If you're around people who a book is $5, it's too expensive, well, that's where your values are, and you're going to be at that level for the rest of your life. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what your purpose and goals are. But if your goal is, I want to be really successful and make a lot of money and be looked up to, you need to be around people making a lot of money that are looked up to. And that's just the way the world works. The books you read and the people you associate with are what determine what you know and who you are. So you have to be willing to step up and read more demanding material and hang out with more successful people to take on their value set and their work ethic. And then you begin to be one of them, which means you're successful and making more money. A lot of people think you get richer by working more hours. That's you see that all the time. I worked 30 hours overtime last week. Or they get 6 jobs. This is no,
learn to negotiate.
Hours, they work more jobs. They work less hours.
That's right.
And they make more money for every hour than you make in a year in some cases. The guy who runs Walmart makes more in an hour than most of their employees make in a year. I'm not thinking that's a good thing, by the way. I think that's unfair, that people who work should be treated a lot better than they are in some cases like that. But overall, it says a lot. If you're trying to be more successful, learn new skills that pay better.
Yeah, yeah, and that brings me to one thing, like just to be a little bit contrary. You were mentioning about how people, of all sorts, of all types, and all professions, they all deserve respect, and I agree with that. But my next question, and it's a trick question, when you go to McDonald's, do you use the kiosk or do you stand in line and talk to a cashier?
I don't have kiosks where I am,
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
so
Yeah.
I
Or
can't
what about
like
automated checkouts, like anything
I
like that?
prefer the automated to the person. It's quicker. It goes at my speed, not
Exactly.
at their speed. I don't want to. I mean, I'm glad they're there, and I wish them success. But I don't want to know their life story. I want to leave. I want to pay for my stuff and get out of there, and not have a 4-hour conversation, and then 10 people in front of me have the same conversation. So it takes me an extra 45, 50 minutes to get out of the store instead of just swiping the thing over a reader and leaving.
Yeah.
So
And
I
also, like in my case, because I'm really picky, it's like I've got a vested interest in what it is that I'm buying, and so if I'm at McDonald's here, they have the kiosk where you can pick your burger and whatever, and there are a lot of people who are saying it's like don't use those, you're taking jobs, and I'm like, but those are terrible jobs, and it's not like most people, they do have the opportunity to pick up a new skill or something like that. I switched careers from being an English teacher to being a tech, right? And it ended up working
pays
out
better.
really well. Yeah, oh yeah, it's way better. I heard, I can't remember who that singer was. They said, I've been rich and I've been poor, but let me tell you, rich is better.
Right. When you're depressed and you go to the Champs-Élysées and you have a cafe and you watch the Rosies walk by,
Right.
somehow life is more enjoyable than sitting depressed in a dark room with no electricity and you have nothing to eat. So
Yeah.
it's better to be unhappy rich because there are more ways of assuaging your unhappiness.
Mhm.
And it's the same thing with me. I've been both. And it's better to be unhappy when you're rich because it doesn't take much to fix it. You
Right.
buy a new car, you go
Mhm.
on a trip to some exotic country,
Mhm.
and it kind of cheers you up a little. You
Mhm.
feel a little
It
better
gives you
about
time
it.
to let it soak in the back of your head. I
Yeah,
heard it's what is it? Like everybody has bad days, but it's nicer to cry in a Mercedes than on a bicycle.
I like that.
Right? So yeah, that's there you go. So
Yeah.
but okay, so I do want to get into what you were saying. So I'll try and get some fast questions out here so that we've covered that and then we can get on. So how often do you find yourself knowing vastly more about the industry or service that you're paying for than the sales or support people? Because that's a very regular
Say that
occurrence to
again. I
me.
have to think about that. That's a little convoluted.
Okay, so I said that like if you go to a store, how often is it just like where it like you're just like, oh my God, I know so much more about this than you. Can like I'm driving, let me drive, please. Like at Home Depot or something, I'm putting something together. It's like, oh, you could use this or something. And well, Ron Swanson did that, at Home Depot, guy walks up, I know more than you. And Ron Swanson just keeps on going, right? But how often do you find yourself, because you've read 30,000 books, that you tend to be the expert in the room? How frequent is
Depends
that?
on the room.
Yeah.
At Home Depot, I'm not. I grew up in a project, so I never had a tool. We
Yeah.
had a handyman. You called up and they fixed everything. So in that case, I delegate to my wife, who grew up in a house, and she's more handy than I am. Now, computer-wise, I'm heads and shoulders above her,
Mm.
but I've been working on computers since '67.
Right.
I was on
Wow.
mainframes before. I had my first computer was 1984. So I was around with CPM when they first came out. But when it comes to tools, I'll say, tell me what I need. And I'm okay with that. That's why I went there. I draw on other people's expertise when I need it, and I'm happy they have it. And when I could be and like you said, when you had questions for me, I believe that you should reciprocate. Someone has a problem. When people get my products, and they can go to berglearning.com for that,
Mm-hmm.
we have a support team. And if they can't fix it, I do. Because I'm a Rotarian, and I believe you tell people you're going to do something, you should either do it or give them their money back. And I don't want to give them their money back. I want them to learn it for two reasons. One, I don't want to give them the money back. And two, it's going to help other people when you get smarter. You're going to solve other people's problems. You're going to help alleviate some of the. No one I know says there's too many smart people in the world. If you read the news, no one's reading the news today and saying, wow, there's just too many smart people making too many good decisions in the world. I've never heard that as a problem. And
I love that.
My goal is to empower people. So whatever it is they're good at, they get better. And if we all get better at what we do, we all benefit from each person's expansion of capacity. Maybe one of my kids who was in medical school at 19 will find a cure for cancer. One of my students had a master's in math at 19 with a 397 GPA. He's a professor at Yale in his early 20s. Another one did college in 6 months. Another became a lawyer at 19. I look at these kids and it makes me feel I've done something with my life. And I go around the world training people. Like I just trained the Royal Thai Army. I trained the Special Forces. And I just want to say I'm doing a program on September 7th for the Wounded Warriors. These are the young people who got hurt. And there's 20 to 22 of them a day killing themselves. So I said, why? Because they can't find jobs. I said, let me teach them how to learn so they can use the GI Bill, go back to school and get a job. They say, we have no money. I said, I won't charge them. Said, let me just help them. So if they go to berglearning.com, there's a little clicky thing there they could click on to take the program only for them. I'm trying to help them. And if they click on September 7th, I'm going to do a whole 4-hour live class for these young people to try to help them have a life. They've given everything. And it hurts me to hear that they're killing themselves after that, and that's how they're being treated. Now, I can't fix every problem, but I can give them the skills they need to go back into the workforce successfully, because it all depends on learning. And if you can learn 2, 3, 4 times faster with a better understanding, there are no obstacles to what you can do in life. And that's what I want to do for these people. It's just a way of giving back.
That's fantastic. So the next question I have here is, are you 100% digital with books now, or do you still go for paper?
That's a good question. There's two upsides. The studies have shown that physical books, you learn them and retain them better because there's a physical feel to a book. You can tell you're near the end, you're near the beginning. There's a topical layout. You remember the page and the picture and the diagram, whereas in an ebook it can flip just by changing the font size. The advantage of ebooks is they're compact, they're inexpensive to manufacture, they don't kill trees. You can take a couple of 100 books in your pocket versus one that might take up half your pocket. So there's some real advantages to the ebook. But as far as learning goes, study after study has shown the retainage and the understanding in a physical book is superior. So it's a question of efficiency versus learning. Depends on your situation. If you're traveling, you probably should be using the ebooks. If you're in a stationary place, you'll benefit more from the physical book.
Oh, that's interesting. So then your own distribution, you tend to stick with paper still, or like maybe 50-50, or
a lot of my reading is online. And I'll give you a little clue. I use my mouse as my hand. I use the hand when you're reading, and I use the cursor on my screen to speed read my screen. And if I'm reading on a phone or an iPad, I hover with my hand. It's always faster if you use your hand. In fact, if you'd like, I could demonstrate how that works for our audience.
Please do.
When you're done with this podcast, pick a book you've read, preferably nonfiction. So the only thing that can confuse you is your speed, not the content of the book. Read for 1 minute, your normal speed, nothing special, and see how far you get. Then take a pencil, put a little mark where you finish, and say, that's how far I read now. Go to the second chapter and use your hand and go one line at a time, eye following your hand as fast as you can comprehend. So as long as you know what you're reading, go quicker till you really don't. You're going too fast. Now you know you hit a ceiling. Slow down just enough so your comprehension comes back. And for 5 minutes, move your eye consistently across one line at a time. And then go back to the first chapter where you tested yourself. And this time use your hand. And you'll blow past the initial spot that you marked off by 20 to 40%. Just doing that. So that's a quick way to increase your speed.
Yeah, I remember having to teach the same text, and you always made sure it's like put your finger on the book, put your finger on the book.
Always
Obviously,
quicker, always faster.
Yeah,
but you can use the mouse as a hand, and you can hover because a lot of the screens, like on a iPad or on a phone, if you touch the screen, you'll move the words around.
Yeah.
You have to hover. You kind of go over the surface to do it.
One of the things I wanted to talk about, because I was guessing if you're blasting through content that quickly, like you should probably have a faster monitor, like a super fast refresh rate.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense, yes.
And the other one I was thinking, I always use these kinds of Logitech mice because they have a disengage for the, that one can disengage as well?
I think so. I've got a Logitech. It looks very similar to mine. Yeah. I like Logitech, especially it has a bunch of buttons that I can make shortcuts.
Yep.
It has the scroll
this is enter.
wheel. Yeah.
This is refresh. This is select all.
Yeah.
This is copy, paste, cut, and forward, backward.
It streamlines everything. And you're correct. I do use the same. It's similar. I don't think I have the exact same one, but it's similar in what it does.
Yeah, but the main thing I was saying, like, so your one also, you can hit the button and it disengages the click of the wheel. I figured that'd be really important for you.
Yeah.
Now, let me just find my spot here again.
Yeah. Okay. I got a wheel. If you spin it, the whole screen just flies. It flies. It's just perfect for what I like to do.
Right. Yeah, because you'd need to have that refresh rate,
very high. Yes.
What about the apps that they have now? It's part of Kindle, and I've seen some other services like Spritz for where it has one word at a time, and it gives you like the visual center, possibly with a red, and then you can choose how many words per minute.
I haven't seen that. Spritz.
Okay. Yes, Spritz. Yeah, it's so it's really an interesting feeling. The thing that I don't like about it is that one, you got, like, I was telling my son who's 6, I was telling him use your finger on the book, and I told him the reason why he should do that he can agree with and understand is then if I come up and say, hey, fry, blah 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 blah, and then he has to go back to reading, he looks back down. Oh, that's where I was. It's right where my finger is, So he resonated well with that one, but you can't do that when you're looking at your phone with the Spritz.
No,
you have to give it your full attention, and that's the problem. And I find psychologically it takes a little bit of adjustment, but you have to learn to trust yourself too. You're taking in way more stuff than you think you are.
Yes. Yes. You're just not conscious of a lot of the stuff you're taking in and one of the keys to knowing what you're taking in is asking the right questions. Okay. If you say, why am I a loser? Then you'll get an answer to that question. If you say, how can I be more successful? That's going to be the same question, but a better answer. I was training the Green Berets, and they told me sometimes I have really bad days. And I said, do you want to know the single most important question you could ask? And this is true in business too. And I said, sure. I said, what's the next best thing I can do now? Not why is this happening? This isn't fair. Deal with it. It's happening. And it isn't fair. So what? Do you want to live or die? Okay. And so in business, it's a live or die also. And so it's always not why is this happening or this isn't fair or I don't want to know this. What your question should be is, what's the next best thing I can do now? So the brain, which is a computer, is looking for a solution. It looks at where you want to be It looks at where you are and it looks how to bridge it. It may give you 3 or 4 directions you can take, and you may want to test all 4 of them to find which one actually works, which is a lot better than I'm not happy, well, I don't want to have to deal with this. And too many people whine and complain about the things happening in their life instead of asking what they could do to fix it. And that's why it's the best question you can ask, because it really tells the brain, find a path forward. No matter what's happening right now, find me that path forward. And it will do that if you ask that question.
Yeah, that's great. That reminds me of when I was in engineering, when it occurred to me, okay, so the hardest part is finding the question. Finding answers, that's easy. It's finding what the actual question is. That's really difficult.
Yes, it is. You're correct. And that's why a lot of people are failing. They're asking the wrong questions. Why don't I have money? Why am I a failure? Why doesn't anyone love me? Instead of how can I be more lovable? How can I earn more money? How can I be more successful? It's the same question reframed to a positive outcome. And many times you'll see people in school saying, this sucks. Why do I have to learn this? Instead of how can I learn this faster and better so I can do something I'd rather be doing? And that would give them the outcome they're looking for. Instead, what's happening is they put the time and effort in. What they told their brain is, don't learn this. It sucks. And so the next day, they don't know anything they studied. And they're like, how did that happen? I spent 6 hours last night working. No, you spent 6 hours last night telling your brain to delete everything you were looking at because it sucked. Instead of asking the right question, where you would have been done in half the time and actually retained it. We self-sabotage by our questions. You're completely right about that.
Yeah, I love that way of it's a different way that from how I've been framing the grind, doing things that are unpleasant, it's because all of us have to do it, there's just no question. And that brings me to my next question, which is, I think you've somewhat covered it already. I was going to say, like, what's the ratio of reading because you want to versus reading because you have to in a typical week for you?
I'll give you a specific example of something. About 15 years ago, I was lecturing a lot on cruise ships. And they had a 7-day cruise to Hawaii, all the islands.
Is this the Photoshop one?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I remember you telling me. Yeah. Please continue.
And so my wife wanted to go to Hawaii. You listen to your wife. It's very important.
Happy wife, happy life.
The secret to a happy marriage is 2 words. You're right. You can also say, I'm wrong. That will work too. And if you really want to have good sex, it's you're right, I'm wrong. But don't overplay it because they'll know you're playing with them. But under no condition do you say you're wrong, and especially if they're wrong. Never say that because it's not going to work. So we wanted to go to Hawaii. They didn't want speed reading. So what do they want? Photoshop, video, and photography. And I'm like, I teach that. I learn 80 times faster than normal. So I figured I'd figure it out. Didn't know Photoshop takes 4 years to learn in college, which is good because they might have been intimidated to say, I know that if I knew that, but I didn't know that.
Right.
So I went and I bought 10 books on Photoshop. I read it in 3 hours. I learned Photoshop. The next day I bought 10 books on video, read it in 3 hours. I learned video. The next day I bought 10 books on photography. In 3 hours I learned it and learned photography. So I'm going to this cruise saying, please, let these people be 90 years old and not know what a digital camera is. That was my dream audience. The first man walks in, he says, I'm a professional photographer, 38 years. I hear you teach photography. And my wife's like, oh my God.
It's like, I do now.
Guy comes in and says, I've been doing Photoshop for 5 years. I hear you're an expert. And she starts crying because they said if we didn't do it, they throw us off the boat. Not in the water, but when we got to shore.
Right.
So for a week, I'm teaching these people who are far more experienced than I am how to do Photoshop, take pictures, and do video. And at the end of the week, they said, how many years have you been studying this? You know so much. That's what I love. I don't like reading. I love skills. I love being able to do things I couldn't do. And every day I try to learn a new skill that I can employ in my life, whether it's communicating, negotiating, writing copy, doing math, and I try to go out of my comfort zone. I try to learn things in fields that have nothing to do with what I do, because often that's where the breakthroughs come. You suddenly get an epiphany and you realize that the guy's doing something on a guitar that can help you make money teaching reading. It's got nothing, it doesn't initially look like it has any connection, but it does. And it's because you're the one person who had the time to learn that guitar or learn quantum mechanics or some other exotic field that had nothing to do with your core interest. You suddenly saw a new way of doing something. And I'll give an example. Everyone saw a cell phone. Everyone. But Job said, why don't I make a computer that can make calls? And it worked out pretty well for him. And he said, why don't I make it bigger? Like 8.5 by 11. That worked out good too. Everyone could see the phone. Or another good example, Sears and J.C. Penney became wealthy because they had a catalog. Back in the days when people didn't have stores they could go to, especially in the West, they would go to the Sears catalog or they'd go to the J.C. Penney catalog. And they bought stuff for the catalog, and it made them very wealthy. Well, Bezos looks at that and says, why don't I put the catalog online? So now Sears and J.C. Penney that invented the concept are going bankrupt. They had the infrastructure. They had the catalog. Bezos said, they're not doing this online. And he's the richest man in the world. What changed? He saw the opportunity to use what was there already in a new way. And that's what genius is. It's seeing what everyone else sees differently. And that's how you become successful in this world, by looking at it a different way. It's not a phone, it's a computer that makes calls. And it wasn't like rocket science. Anyone could have figured that out. And he didn't even know how to build the phone. He had to hire, he wasn't able to make it work. He just said, I need a bunch of smart people who know how to do techie stuff. Here's what I want you to do. I want this to be a little computer. Figure it out. Let me know when it's ready. And that's really what he did. It wasn't like he went in the lab and made an iPhone. He didn't make an iPhone, but he was the visionary. And he got the right people who could take his vision and make it happen. In fact, if you want to see real magic, not illusion, look around you. Everything you see that isn't from nature was a thought. Your hat, your shirt, your green screen, the fan in the background. Everything you're looking at was someone's idea. And what we do is we turn ideas into things. That's our superpower. We can take what we vision in our imagination and make it real. The people who are making the most money are the people who have the biggest visions and are able to make it real. That's how you make success in this world. You don't have to know how to do everything. But you have to have the vision and either know how to make it real or find someone else who can do it for you, like Jobs did. Either way, you're going to be the next success. A good example, Blockbuster. They put everyone out of business because they had these mega stores. They bought tons of tapes. No one could compete with them. Then Netflix came along and said, we don't need no stinking store. We can do it through the mail. It's cheaper. Where's Blockbuster? They're gone. And then Redbox came along and says, we don't need the mail. And the only reason Netflix is doing so well is they switched their model to online streaming original content that had high quality, or they would have gone the route of Blockbuster. But they had a visionary who said, we need a shift. There's a shift going on in our market, and we're going to lead that shift. We're going to do original programming, and we're going to stop focusing on the DVDs and on the streaming content. And now they're doing well. Now they're in trouble again because Disney and a lot of other people are taking some of their content that made them succeed and putting it somewhere else. But that's what business is. It evolves. And the visionary with the next thing, do you want to be Blockbuster or Netflix right now? Which one would you rather have stock in?
Exactly.
That's why this program is so important, because it gives people the ability to grab more data faster, better, use it. And again, it's at berglearning.com, BERGLEARING. And I believe you have a coupon they can use as well.
Yep, that's right. So the link is just under the video. Let me see here. Here's a bit of trivia for you. There's a good chance you know more about biology than I do by a long shot, because
I got an 800 on the GRE in biology. So well, I'm going to say probably true.
Okay, so let's give this a try. I read a study that reported that dyslexia in alphabetical languages are in a different area of the brain than dyslexia in Chinese.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I believe it's like up here and back here, and
they're more graphic. They're using their language is more of a hieroglyph type of language than ours is. Ours is sound bites. And what we're doing is converting letters to sounds. They're doing some. They have more like thoughts.
They do both. So the thing is, like, you know, if you show me a word in Chinese that I've never seen before, I have learned how to predict how to pronounce it. And so, I'd say that one is probably has Li in it, so it's probably Li. It's one of those four is my guess, and more often than not, I'm correct. But the reason why I think that's important, especially with your goal, is I think dyslexia it's a crippling problem. You know, it needs to be fixed. And I was thinking that, you know, maybe something that you know, like you could work on, or, you know, maybe we could cooperate, or, you know, put our heads together or something, maybe on a system of using Chinese characters to learn how to read English if you're dyslexic, so you could still get the ability to read. You know, but what you could do is like, so like what I'd do is I'd have the word for eating in Chinese, but I'd say eat. That word is eat. You know, I wouldn't tell them the Chinese pronunciation because you're just causing more problems. I'm not sure if it would make more sense to use Chinese to, let me think here. So I was trying to say that with Chinese and the grammar, that's what I was saying. I'm not convinced that you'd want to match Chinese grammar. There is another problem, which is that you have to conjugate in English, but you don't conjugate in Chinese. So it's I eat now, I eat yesterday, I eat tomorrow, instead of I will eat, I am eating. Okay, so like that would be a problem. But I think that if somebody wants to take that idea and make it into something, then I think it could help a lot of people. The way my program
works now, it does get rid of dyslexia for many of the people that I've taught. And here's the reason, because you're correct, it is a different part of the brain. When most people read, there's a voice in the back of their head pronouncing one word at a time. They're basically using their parietal lobe to convert the symbols to sound bites. Mm-hmm. So they're using their eyes to hear a book. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When I teach people to read my way, they're seeing more of a movie and pictures, which is more of the occipital lobe, a different part of the brain, and it doesn't have dyslexia. Mm-hmm. So as they're transferring from listening to sound bites one at a time, taking it in more graphically, more spatially, more analog than digital. Sound is digital. Songs are played in time, one note at a time. Pictures are instantaneous. Mm-hmm. A book is pictures. Mm-hmm. It's pictures called symbols called letters. Mm-hmm. But we're processing those pictures as sound bites. Mm-hmm. So by processing them more as visual bites instead of sound bites, the part of the brain that has the dyslexia isn't being used. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Bypassing it. So you don't actually need to do the Chinese to get the outcome. Although that's a very interesting idea you have. But fortunately, you don't have to go that far over to another language. You could actually stick with the language you have and do it. Just
That's
by
excellent.
Switching to that more visual formatting.
Okay. So so my next question is, did you end up learning how to code? Because that's how we met. Is I was helping you put an opt-in form on your site.
Minimal. I was never really like you were a coder. I can bold, I can make a word bold or underline, you know, I could change a font if I had to, and I know where to find the coding commands online if I need them. If I'm writing, if I'm working in like a Word document or or a WordPress document. I know how to do it if I needed to, but first I usually like to use a software that'll do it for me. Something
Right.
that's
Like drag and drop, something like ClickFunnels.
drag and drop is more my thing. And if I needed a coder, or I have my friend Tushar, who's a coder, and he does all that for me, and that's fine because he's really good at it. I don't need to be good at something he's good at. I do need to know what he can do. And I know when a coding thing can fix a problem. And even though I don't like Jobs, I knew this could be made into a computer. I don't know how it's done, but I can tell engineers what I want have happen, and they'll figure it out. So I'm not saying I think coding is important and we need people who can do it, but that's not what my core competency is learning and synthesis. And so I'd rather focus on that and delegate that to an expert like yourself than try to come up to your level and lose all that time that I could have put on becoming even better at what I do.
Yep, absolutely. That's awesome. So you very generously offered to read my book on the show. I can know that they have up here. So just to be ridiculous, I wrote the book. I edited the book. So I'm you ready to do a ready, set, go?
Yeah.
I'll see how far we go. Okay. So here we go.
It's not scrolling as fast as I would like because it's got the Skype running.
Oh.
And I'm online, so it's taking bandwidth away. But I'm looking at it. So I'm on page 64.
64. I'm on page 9.
Okay. I can't make it go any faster. I can read faster, but I can't scroll any faster because of the buffer. Okay. I'm on 110.
This is awesome.
And I'm trying to make it go quicker, but it won't. It's freezing up. Okay, there it goes. It's going again. Let me try doing this. There it goes. All right, there it goes. And okay, I'm done. So let's come back to Skype. What would you like me to talk about? It's actually a pretty good book. I agree with a lot of your ideas. One of the things I really enjoyed was the stuff on ethics. It's something I actually know something about because you were kind of talking about the importance of being truthful. And many people ask the question, well, what, like,
Okay, I gotta pause the video here for a second because of what Howard's about to say. He just blasted through the 32,000 word book in 90 seconds, and he's about to talk about one of the most important and sensitive parts of the section on ethics in my book. In the book, I was talking about the two ways that most people get ethics wrong. The first was debunking the old belief that royals were there by divine right. I also wanted to have an implied answer for postmodernists who think that history is manipulated in its entirety by the powerful. So I had to prove that the basis of that argument is no good. The second idea I wanted to debunk was that the ends justify the means. To bury those two beliefs, I started with a repugnant example that is a smack in the face of anyone with a working moral compass. The example was, if only good things are allowed to happen, then it would have been good as in ethical if it had come to pass that Hitler won the war, despite the atrocities that he committed. The answer is it wouldn't be. But I actually only use that example to show that it's a poor example. Hitler didn't win, and that is good. And that fact actually keeps a bit of credibility for the belief that all actions that come to pass are good, but more specifically are ethical. You can get your copy of the book on figureitout.com and see my breakdown of finding a better question to ask. Now back to Howard.
Like you said, if Hitler had won the war, would that have made what he did ethical? And there's an answer to that, actually. You didn't answer that. You hypothesized, but there actually is an actual answer.
I did create another situation where it took the same logic and
right.
Yeah.
And twist, but there actually, this is something I actually do know. There were two of the greatest thinkers in history were Hegel and Kant. Okay, and they both wrestled with ethics. Hegel was a pragmatist. He said the only thing we know is what we know. So let's say Hitler saved a drowning Jewish child from drowning, and you said, what a wonderful man, but you didn't see him put the kid on a train to Auschwitz. So your judgment was based on the event you observed. It's what you know.
Partial understanding of the situation.
Someone else
Gotcha.
tried to save the kid and wasn't a good swimmer, and the kid drowned, so they were a terrible person. Kant would say, no, what you perceive isn't necessarily the truth. Truth is truth, and he was right. For example, everyone thought the world was flat. They lived in the world that was flat. They sailed in a world that was flat. And so they constrained themselves to a reality that wasn't true. And the fact that they believed it and everyone knew it to be true didn't change the fact that it wasn't true, that it was round. And so Kant was right. What Hegel is saying, we only know what we know, and we can only make judgments on what we know. But Kant's saying that might be the case, but that doesn't make the judgment true. It means you're living a lie and believe the lie. And so Kant had a higher understanding of ethics, that there's a purer level of truth than simply perception. The fact that you want to believe it's flat, live like it, and still people think the world's flat. There are a group of people who believe that it's a hoax, that it's round. And so the fact is you can believe whatever you want based on your perceptions, but that doesn't make it true. Truth is truth. So Kant got a higher concept of truth, and your book kind of touched on that subject, and it also made a big thing out of the importance of repetition and hard work. And you're correct, repetition is a very important part of learning, but there are other ways of doing it that aren't as hard. If you'd like, I can demonstrate one.
Please do.
I'm going to give you 10 things to remember. Now, you took my course, so you may remember these things.
Give me a second first.
Yeah.
I'm remembering my master list in case it's not obvious. The trick that I've learned for memorizing a list and the order it was in is you have a master list and then you envision that whatever that item with whatever was said as
which is a lot easier than just repetition.
Yeah, it is.
Right, because the book didn't talk about a master list. It only talked about the repetition. And you're right, you mentioned guitar playing, which you became very good at. And when you're dealing with a motor skill like swimming, typing, guitar playing, repetition is the way you learn. You can't read a book on how to play guitar and play guitar. You have to do what's in the book over and over and over until the motor memory sinks in so adeptly that there's no thought. When you're typing, you have to think, where's the letter A? You're not going very quickly. I type about 125 words a minute. At that speed, if I'm thinking, where's the letter A, I'm not typing. I'm thinking. And so repetition is important in guitar playing and a lot of motor skills. And certainly in learning a language, it can be very helpful. But as you said, setting up a memory palace or a master list can streamline it. So here are 10 things to remember. And I know you probably know them because you took my course. Pole, shoes, tricycle, car, glove, gun, dice, skate, cat, and bowling pins. Now, most people would say, I don't know the list right now. And like you said, if you take a list you know and link it to the list you want to know, it takes less time. I'm going to bet everyone listening can count to 10. And we'll use those 10 numbers to learn these 10 things super fast. Here's another tip. You only remember 10% of what you read, which is one reason reading doesn't work for a lot of people. You remember 90% of what you say and do. So we're going to say and do. So the number one looks like a pole, like a flag pole or a lamp pole. So when I say one, you say pole. One.
Pole.
Two. How many shoes do you wear?
Right this second or in general?
In general.
In general, I have maybe 5 pairs.
No, not how many you have in the closet. How many you put on your feet?
Oh, 2 at a time. Right. Gotcha.
2 at a time. So you're overthinking.
Right.
2 is shoes. What's 2?
2 shoes. Yeah.
1.
A pole.
3 is a tricycle. How many wheels on a tricycle?
3 wheels on a tricycle. Yeah.
So 3 is?
3. The tricycle.
2 is?
2 is shoes.
1
and then
is?
pole. Yeah, pole.
Perfect.
Yeah.
4 is a car. How many
Four
tires?
wheels, right? Four wheels. So
Four is
cars.
a car. What's four?
Yeah, car.
Two.
Two is shoes.
One.
One is a pole.
Three.
Three is a tricycle.
I'm jumping on purpose. You're not learning a list, you're associating. Five is a glove. How many fingers in a glove?
Five.
What's five?
Glove.
What's three?
Tricycle.
One.
Pole.
Perfect. Six gun. They love them in Texas. I'm not a gun owner.
Oh, six shooters. Okay.
It's like a cowboy. Six shoot. Exactly. A six shooter. What's six?
Yeah, six is a gun, six shooter.
Four.
Four is a car.
Two.
Two is shoes.
Seven is lucky in dice, at least at the first throw.
Yep. Yep.
So what's seven?
Dice.
Five.
Five is the
Look at my hand.
it's coming. So it's something that has right, a glove. Yeah.
There you go. You're picturing.
Yep.
Three.
Three is the tricycle.
One.
Yeah, pole.
Rhymes work. Say eight skate.
Eight skate.
Eight skate.
Eight skate. Oh, okay.
It's eight.
Oh, it's a skate. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Six. Why do they live in Texas?
Six shooter. Six shooter. Yeah, gun.
Four.
Four is the car.
Two.
Two is the shoes.
You're almost done. Nine. Yep. How many lives does a cat have?
The cat has 9 lives.
So what's nine?
Cat.
Seven was lucky in
dice. Yep.
Five.
Five is the glove.
Three.
Three is the tricycle.
One.
One's the pole.
Last one. 10. How many bowling pins in a lane?
Well, there's the 10 pin is one of them. Yeah, it's one type.
10 is
bowling pin.
One.
Pole.
Two.
It's shoes.
Three.
Tricycle.
Four.
Car.
Five.
Glove.
Six.
Six shooter gun.
Seven.
Seven is the dice.
Eight rhymes with
skate.
Nine.
Nine was the cat.
And 10.
10 is 10 bowling pin.
That's right. Now here's how you use it. This is a tool. A lot of times you have to learn numbers. They're challenging. We don't learn numbers, we learn the pictures. So if my room is 314, it's tricycle, pole, car.
Okay.
Tricycle hits a pole on a car. Picture that. Tricycle hits a pole on a car. Tricycle, what number?
That's beautiful. A tricycle's 3, yeah.
Hits a pole.
Yeah, pole is the 1, yeah.
On a car.
The car's 4.
That's also the value of pi in geometry to measure a circle. So you can use it to learn business numbers, percentages, due dates, room numbers, product SKU numbers. In engineering, there's things you have to know numbers for, science, math, history. So this is actually a way to speed road numbers. So yes, repetition is an important part of learning. And for many things, we use repetitive techniques. And I have one I could share with you. But many times we can do it another way. And I just thought I would, because your book focused on the repetitiveness, which is correct, because for what you were describing, guitar and coding and a lot of other things, repetition is an important part of mastery. You're correct. But I just wanted to say that it doesn't have to always require repetitiveness. Some things can be learned super fast using other strategies.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And the other thing that I'd have to say about guitar then, about repetition, because you were describing, like the motor memory, the muscle memory, all that kind of stuff. But, and you mentioned that you can't be thinking about it. Okay. But there's one other thing that I'd like to add about why that repetition is so necessary. It's because you stop thinking about what you have to do and you start thinking about how you want to do that thing that you do. So you could go da 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 da, or you could go da 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 da. It's like so just like change it just a little bit. Just and you can only do that when you've already got the fundamentals of the repetition. That's some great insight. I really appreciate that.
Well,
and
I enjoyed
I
the book. You covered a lot of very good points. Talked about the importance of truth and ethics and being true to yourself. You talked a lot about repetition. You showed applications in different areas like language. And that was a good one because I know you mentioned you were in Taiwan and you became a master of that language. And that was also through repetition. But it helped you with your memory as well. It helped you, and you applied the same strategies you use to master guitar, which 40 hours a week for 2 years till you actually could play anything really well, which I found intriguing because I'm trying to do that myself right now. I'm learning guitar. I've learned the chords very well.
Right.
Although I'm older, so my hands aren't as dexterous, so I can't move as fast as I would like. But I'm trying now to learn lead. So you kind of gave me some insight that the best way to learn is to play songs, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes playing those songs, and you may only learn about 5 or 6 notes and you're just going to play them slowly and slowly, and then faster and faster and faster, and then go to the next 5 or 6 notes. And it seems like that's what you're saying. That's how you learn to play lead. You actually play the songs, you make the licks, you practice them until they work, and it's going to take tons of repetition and patience. It isn't that I'm thinking it's hard, it is hard. But once you've done that, you've learned a strategy, and then other songs will employ that strategy, and you begin to see the same strategies repeating themselves throughout the repertoire of the music. But until I don't know how many there are, but let's say there's 80 or 90 strategies. Once you've mastered those, everything from that point on, it's like typing. It's just a matter of which strategy they're using, and since you know the strategy, it doesn't require a lot of thought anymore to employ. But it took 40 hours a week for 2 years get to the point where that happened.
Right. Yeah. It's the other thing about guitar that I'd like to share with you. I know that if I were born, like 20 years later, I'd be twice the guitar player that I ever had been, and that's because of the software. You can check out Guitar Pro. And the thing that's nice about that is it'll play the actual song. People, just the open source community, they go through and they chart out the whole song, including the drums and all that kind of stuff. You can turn the drums off if you want. But the most important thing is you can play with the tempo, okay? Because I don't care how hard the song is, you can do it if it's slow enough. And I guess the other thing that I was saying.
Can I write that down? Is that the name of the website?
Yeah,
is that a website?
Yeah, Guitar Pro. Yeah, it's a great piece of software. I think they're on version 9 now, but yeah, you can do anything slow, and then there is a spot in between fast and slow that is by far the most difficult way to do it. There's a point where you like hit a wall and you just can't do it cleanly at a medium pace, but you can do it really fast or you can do it really slow. So I move on to, okay, then I'm just gonna, get my fingers as close to the spot as I can and just do it a whole whack of times. And then, I guess what I was saying in the book though as well was that like the repetition for the things that I was mentioning anyway. So I'm not contradicting you, but they do. The repetition is what I've found is necessary for excellence, at least in the things that I've gone after. It's just like like natural talent. That's not going to get you into the NBA. It's the repetition that's going to get you in the NBA. The hustle. It's being willing to do the stuff that other guy is not willing to do.
And you hear that all the time. They spend 5 or 6 hours doing one shot over and over and over again for months and months and maybe years until they could do it with their eyes closed, because the muscle memory is so entrenched that what looks like an impossible thing for us, well, it is impossible. But when you've done it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, your brain knows exactly. It's like walking on a wire over the Niagara Falls. I wouldn't want to do it. I don't think you'd want to do it. Yeah. But there are people who can do it. And it didn't just happen in one day. They spent many, 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 many years training their brain to be balanced on a very small space called a wire. We know it's doable because people can do it, but very few of us have the capacity to do what they do because we haven't done the training that they did.
Well, and the pole helps too when they have it, right?
I don't think it would help me if I had the best pole in the world, the most balanced pole that was ever created, and you put me between 2 tall buildings. It's like take the pole and walk in no net I'm pretty sure within 5 seconds I'd be on the ground looking like Humpty Dumpty. No matter how
and
big
we
that
remember that,
pole-
right? And we remember that pole is number one because that's what I'd be doing, right? Number one.
There is a point where natural ability also comes in, like a Mozart composing at 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
I don't care how smart you are. That's not something you learn. That's something you're born with. I do have a course on how to be a genius, and I learned I could teach it. Remember Shakespeare says some are born great and others achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. There are geniuses that are born geniuses, like Einstein or Newton or Mozart. But genius can be learned. It's a learnable skill, and there is a way to learn it.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's a scary word to throw around, especially because, like, as I mentioned in the book, I'm not a modest guy. Okay, when I'm being modest, that's because I'm holding my cards close to my chest, and I don't do that very often. I do wear my skills on my sleeve, I guess would be the
I
way.
see your watch.
Well, the watch from the book.
Actually, that was a big part of your book. It's $350 Bulova watch. You don't have a Rolex, but your watch says that you're a hardworking guy, you're a successful guy, but you're not ostentatious. You don't need a $10,000 watch to say you're successful. Okay, mine's a Fitbit, so I don't know what that tells you. I like to swim. And I was a swimming teacher for 18 years. I saved about 16 people. Actually, it's in a pool where someone died, where I wasn't the lifeguard. They drowned, and I brought them back.
Wow.
I was able, I revived them. I got their heart beating, and I had them breathing when the ambulance came. It wasn't my job to do it, but I knew how to do it. And it wasn't not my job. He's dead.
Sorry, I don't start until 6.
I don't start until 6. I'm sorry. You don't have to die. But so the Fitbit, I bought it because it keeps track of the laps. I used to have to count. I do a mile in about 50 minutes. Well, you got to count how many times you've gone, and it's kind of boring, but you got to do it, or else you don't know how many laps you swam. Well, I don't do that anymore. The watch actually says lap 1, lap 2, lap 3, and I like the fact that I can now focus on. I do a lot of writing when I'm, because it's a repetitive, redundant state. You go in hypnotic mode, and it's a perfect place in the water to think about things I need to get done in my business or in my writing. And I write in my sleep. Most of what I wrote when I was sleeping, and when I woke up, I transcribed it. And swimming kind of similar, because it's back and forth for an hour, like a gerbil in a wheel. The brain goes numb, and you can then tune into stuff you want to get done, because your body's just kind of moving by itself, and you're inside of it, but you're not part of it. It's just doing its thing, like guitar when you're in flow. And so it's a great place to be creative, but if you have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, it doesn't allow for that flow to take place. So I like the Fitbit because it does that for me.
Yeah, it's funny. I go by the clock. I just keep on, going back and forth and doing my laps until I've done it for a certain amount of time. So I'm not
going by how many laps. You're going by the duration, which is another way to do it. I usually go for 64 laps, because that's 66 actually. I'll be specific. It's in a 25-meter pool. 66 laps is just about a mile. It's a little bit more, not a whole lot more, maybe a half a length more. But I know where my mile is, and that's my sweet spot. If I do a mile, I know I've got my workout in.
That's really great. So this has been absolutely amazing. It really, I obviously put so much thought into this video, and it's so funny because now I've been thinking about these questions for 20 years. So now it's like a nice big circle where it's like, okay. Yeah, exactly. Closure. It's like that part. It's a ticked box. This is absolutely fantastic opportunity. Howard Berg, he's got his site, and the link is down below this.
I will help you. By the way, if you get the program, I'll make sure you learn it. You won't just get the program. You'll be reading 100% faster. You'll understand better, You'll connect the dots clearer. You'll be able to make more money. If you have kids, they'll be able to finish school and not live with you till they're 40, which is happening a lot today.
Right.
More kids live with their parents than are married between 25 and 40 in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a tragedy for a lot of parents. They love their kids, but you're 40 years old. Maybe you should have your own place.
Yeah, well, in Taiwan, in Chinese culture, they have a completely different attitude to that. Yeah, see, what they do is they encourage you to stay at home even after marriage because it builds more strength in the family relationship, and also recognizing the financial responsibility family members have for each other. So they're sitting there saying,
we don't have that here.
Yeah, so they're saying, like, why would you go outside and give your money to some stranger when you can save your money by staying at home? Of course, I think that if they're showing absolutely no ambition whatsoever, you do kind of have to kick them out of the house, in my opinion.
I'm guessing most of the people there have a higher asset. When I was in I was in Thailand, one of the things that stuck out to me is in Asian countries, they go to school 6 days a week, not 5.
Mm-hmm.
They go to school till 3, and then they go to their Kuman or their Kaplans till 7.
Yeah.
So they're going to school about 9 hours a day, do 3 to 4 hours homework 6 days a week.
That's right.
If our kids get 10 minutes of homework, their parents bitch about how much they have to do after they had all the summer vacation and basically just learn how to take a test when they are in school. And that's why we're falling behind.
Mm-hmm.
And so, among other reasons, these kids are doing calculus in 6th and 7th grade, and our 12th graders can't do decimals and fractions. 38% of 12th graders can't do decimals, fractions, and percentages. And this is the reason we're still successful is we have 300 million people. Mm-hmm. There's a very small percentage that actually make the wealth, that actually make the decisions, that actually are able to do stuff that pays well. And that's what gives them the edge because of the volume. But the majority of people, they don't understand why they're falling further and further behind. And I'm trying my best to fix that and say, if you can learn more and understand better, you can change your life. Like you said, stop playing guitar and become a coder. You love the guitar, but you made more money coding. Mm-hmm. And so it was the same with me with swimming. I was making $8 an hour as a swimming teacher at night. And then I started teaching reading and I was making $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 in a night. So did I want to make $36 in a night or $10,000 a night? I love the swimming, but I can build a pool and swim in it with the $10,000 a night income. So I didn't have to give up the swimming.
Yeah, and get a hot lifeguard. Right.
Yeah. Well, I have my wife's amazing. I tell you, my first marriage was a storybook marriage. Unfortunately, Stephen King wrote that book. But my current wife, she's remarried as well. And her first marriage, 2 children, their mother died in a fire, and she took them. They weren't family, they weren't friends. She saw that they were splitting these 2 kids apart, and she says, "I'll be their mom." And that's a very special person that would take a stranger's kids, not 1, but 2, to keep them together. And that's who she is. She's a very special person. I always tell people she's better than I am. As a human being, talk about it as a compassionate person. I have infinite respect for her. She's just a really incredible human being. Now, she's not tech savvy. She can't do reading at my level. She reads 5 times faster than she did. But as a person, she's the best person I've ever met. She's just an amazing person. And I appreciate her better having had the other experience earlier.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, it's my relationship with my wife is I'm the undisputed brains of the family. It's just not even close. She actually has like fairly major memory difficulties, which sounds wonderful on paper, but it's a big problem. But we had to make some exceptions. So like I've got this exceptional memory. Like as I said in the foreword, I didn't fact check anything that I wrote in the book. and well, nah, almost anything. There were like a couple where I was like, was it this or this, or something like that, but like, practically nothing. And that was the point, is to show it's like, this is what it's like on the inside of my head. And
that was a scary book then.
right. And but the agreement that my wife and I came to is that I can't talk about the past. I can't talk about the past because basically a long time ago she made the point, it was like, I could just be making it up, because she's totally blank on that memory. Like even like 10 years ago we went to the UK, and outside of the photos there's nothing there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's an interesting dynamic, and the thing is, like, she's a keeper because she's also an educator. I knew that she'd make sure that our kids are grown right, and she's a looker too. So that's how it all works out in the end. Yeah. So they got her looks and my brains. So that's got lucky on that too. All right, Howard, this has been absolutely fantastic. Is there anything else you want to add before we?
Actually, I do. One of the reasons I do this, I'm a grandparent now. I'm a little older than you. And I'm really concerned about the future for our world and for our children and the younger people. I see some real challenges. A lot of people think competition is the secret to success. What made us successful is cooperation. One person couldn't hunt the mastodon. A tribe could. So I believe by empowering people with these skills for learning and understanding, they can make a better world. That we don't make a better world by killing people, but by giving them good jobs and careers and homes and happy family lives. People who are living like we do don't blow themselves up.
Right.
Because they've got everything to live for.
Right.
The people doing that have nothing else to benefit from. So my job is to go out there and make a better world by increasing people's capacity to learn and understand, make better decisions, find solutions to problems that seem unsolvable to us, but someone else read an extra 20, 30, 40 books, and the dots connected that none of us had on our map before, and they finally saw a way to fix something that couldn't be fixed. And so that's my mission. My mission isn't just about making money, because if the world's gone, money isn't gonna matter very much.
Yeah, you can't take it with you.
Can't take it with you. So I'm hoping people will go to berglearning.com, improve who you are, become the best you can. If each of us becomes the best who we are, excels at whatever it is they excel at, and then gets the capacity to go just another level beyond and learn new things you could never have had the time to do, we all will benefit, because that's what's going to save us as a species, is learning and understanding and thinking and communicating. It's not all this hate and divisiveness that we're seeing in so many places and so many messages that we're getting. And I'm hoping that that's what will happen when they work with me in my programs. I was a yogi when I was younger. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
When I got to college, I studied Kundalini yoga, and I studied other things about consciousness, and it affected me. I see the connectiveness of everything, and I can't fix everything, but I can help the people who can find those solutions find them. And to me, it's more than a business, it's a calling. When you're given an ability to make a difference, you have the responsibility to do that. It's not just about what's in it for you. That's why when I work a lot with the Rotaries and they buy my program, I give a program for a school for a year as a gift, because those kids have no money.
Yeah.
And I want them to learn it too. Yeah. It can't always be about the dollar. Some of the things we do have to be about humanity. And I hope people will take this program and expand their capacity as a human being, and we can become a better world as a result. That's really my dream.
That's fantastic, and I know you're doing a great job, and that's why I absolutely I needed you to be on my show. I needed you to be on my show.
Next time we'll talk about how to be a genius.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Learnable, and how to write a book in a day. Because it's learnable. It's very, very learnable.
Yeah, that's really awesome. All right, so don't forget, link at the bottom of the screen. Figure it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I enjoyed your book.
Thank you.
The best 90 seconds I had reading a book in the last hour.
Well, thanks for keeping the bar nice and high there. All right, thanks.